This is Horror Sucks, the podcast where we watch horror movies and tell you why they suck. I'm Ashley Atkins, and I'm joined by a very special guest today, my dear friend and avid listener of the podcast, Fiona. Fiona, what's up?
Hello, I am honored to be here. I don't know if I will be listening to this back. I'm very sorry. I'm very self-conscious of my voice. I'm apologizing in advance, but I feel like it has been a long-awaited time for me to come on the podcast. Ashley asked me a few months ago, and I, as well as an avid listener of the podcast, I am an avid ghoster of plans. So I backed out, but I'm here now, and I'm very excited. I would coin myself as a horror movie wussy. So that is kind of the premise of why we picked the movie we did today.
Yes. So most of you don't know what movie we picked because we didn't really pick it until yesterday morning, but we watched House on the Haunted Hill. So light on the horror, but I quite enjoyed it. So I'm excited about it. One thing about Fiona that she did mention is she's a huge supporter of us. So this is definitely a long time coming, and we're very grateful for all the shares you give us and all the good vibes you send our way.
Oh, I'm going to get all mushy.
We have mentioned Fiona on the podcast before. Carter and I both worked with her at the place we used to work.
At the place we used to work.
Well, you still work there,
yes.
So I don't want to highlight that and highlight the menu episode in case anyone who goes to the place we used to work listens and decides to go back to listen to that episode.
I think if I ever open a business of my own, I will just have to name it The Place We Used to Work. And then I will hire Ashley and Carter. I don't know. Maybe. They'll probably be too big for me by then.
I highly doubt that. I don't think I'm going to. Maybe in my other career. Yeah. All right, before we get started with it, I have a crazy story to tell you.
Okay.
So today, this is my week 2 of my new job. I'm very excited about it. I work but today I commuted in with fellow previous guest Ian.
Oh,
and
Ian.
and because he also works in the city on Mondays. So I dropped him off at his place, and as I was leaving, I was stopped at a light. I was the first person in line, and you know how when it goes green, like if someone's turning left, like you'll wait for them to go. So I waited for them to go, and some jerk face decided that they didn't want to wait, and there was a line of people behind me. They didn't want to wait, and they went around the line, and they hit the person.
Oh my gosh.
So I had to I was already running later than I wanted to be, but I had to turn around and pull over so I could give my name as a witness and just tell the police officer what happened. And luckily it was just what happened? Give me your license. Okay, you're good to go. But it was wild. It was a bad accident.
Oh my God.
The poor woman who got hit, the one that was turning, she was just so shaken up. I felt so bad for her because she wasn't in the wrong.
Yeah.
And the person who hit her was she came up to me. She was like, "What happened?" And I was like, "You hit?" I was like, "Well, she was turning, and then you came out. You decided to go around everyone and hit her." And she was like, well, who's at fault? And I was like, "Well, that's a turning lane that you drove through." She's like, "Well, I just didn't see her." And I was like, "You had no authority to go around everyone." I didn't say that. And I was like, "Well, it's fine." And she's like, "It's not fine. I'm in trouble." And I was like, "I don't know what you want me to tell you. I'm just here so I can express myself as a witness to protect this woman who got hit, because you know for a fact that this other woman is going to try and fight it." And I was just like,
that, my friend, is the consequences of your actions. Literally, happy frickin' Monday. Welcome to Massachusetts.
Literally, I was just I just kind of, and I have a dash cam in my car. And of course, no, it wasn't recording. So I have a dash cam, and I tend to not use it because whenever I turn it on to record, it just shuts off.
Oh.
Yeah.
It probably doesn't have much storage.
But it's supposed to be able to record over itself.
Intriguing.
Yeah. I'm wondering if it's broken. I mean,
maybe?
It was
But do you
only-
care enough to get it checked out?
To be honest, no. It was a Christmas gift that I wasn't supposed to get. Essentially, I think I told this story, but my brother wanted a dash cam, so my dad found one that was like $30, and was like, heck yeah, $30 for a dash cam, yeah, I'll buy it. Well, the website that he was using required you to buy 3,
Of course.
so $30 or actually 90. So then 3 showed up at our door, and he was like, how'd that happen?
Merry Christmas.
So I got one and he got one as well. But I was like, all right, I'll take it. Set it up, the whole thing. But yeah, I don't know. It's not worth getting it checked out or fixed.
Yeah.
I mean, I still have a cracked phone screen from New Year's. I'm not getting a dash cam fixed before I get that.
That is a fat mood.
But anyways, now let's get into this movie. So, actually, before I do, get a little background about the podcast. There's going to be a decent amount of talking about me before we get into the analysis. Don't worry, I'm keeping the facts short, even though there were quite a lot of them. But this podcast, how it works is that I'll give the plot and some fun facts. Then we will discuss and analyze in the good, the bad, and the spooky. We will give our overall thoughts, and then we'll give a rating and the Joe DeStasio Memorial Line highlight, and that's it. We'll wrap it up. Sound good? You give me a face.
I don't know. I'm just so excited. Okay. I'm like nervous.
Don't be nervous.
It's my first time on a pod. I feel famous.
I'm glad you do. So, for those of you who are unfamiliar with House on Haunted Hill, it is a movie from 1959 that's spooky. So how it starts off is there's an eccentric millionaire, Frederick Lauren, who invites 5 people to a party he is throwing for his 4th wife, Annabelle, in an allegedly haunted house that he has rented. He's promised to give each of them $10,000 if they last the night, and each guest has a reason to want the money. So we have the test pilot, Lawrence Schroeder, the newspaper columnist, Ruth Bridges, psychiatrist, Dr. David Trent, who specializes in hysteria, Nora Manning, who works for one of Lauren's companies, and the house's owner, Watson Pritchard. They're all strangers to each other and the Laurens, but they all want the money. So the Laurens aren't getting along very well. They're clearly not in a loving marriage. And it shows. Annabelle tried to poison Frederick at one point, and that he's very suspicious and paranoid and jealous of her relations with others. But Mr. Watson believes that the house is terribly haunted and that his sister-in-law killed a man and a woman there, and that actually in total there's been about 7 people killed there, 4 men and 3 women, which just so happens to be the number of people at this party. Is that intentional? Just a coincidence? It's never actually stated. But basically a bunch of stuff's happened. Poor Nora has the life scared out of her multiple times. She really is quite picked on in this movie.
Our poor friend Nora may have been hired just for her scream, because she has an incredible scream, an incredible horror movie scream, and is basically the only one targeted.
Yeah, her and Lance kind of connect early on. They're A, the younger people of the group, and B, the best looking of the group, arguably. But
not arguably. Very, very true.
So they kind of pair off immediately and go to look in the basement, and they find like a trap door. Is his name Lance?
Yes.
Yeah, Lance gets trapped in a random closet with his head beaten. Like he has like a little bit of blood on his forehead, but like not bad or anything. Like it looks like he truly hit his head on the wall. Just like a little doink.
A little doink into the cement wall. No biggie.
Yeah. And Nora gets scared. She sees what she thinks is a ghost twice. Turns out to be the housemaid, who is blind and very stiff.
Very stiff.
But, there's a vat of acid in the ground in the basement.
That is a key moment for me.
They used to crank with a wheel to lift it.
It's like randomly in the middle of a wine cellar. Like, why?
I mean, it was explained that...
Oh, I didn't listen to that part, clearly.
The owner's wife, the original house's owner's wife, didn't like the wine that he made, so she put acid in the basement to push him in. It's essentially...
Okay, iconic. So only for murderous purposes.
Correct.
So still, again, technically doesn't make sense.
To prove that it is acid and not just a suspicious liquid, the owner of the house, not Mr. Lawrence, Mr. Watson, takes, I think, was it a mouse? Was it a dead mouse in a mouse trap?
I was furiously writing notes and was not looking at the screen.
So I think it was a mouse caught in a mouse trap. He just kind of flicks it into the acid, and you see bubbling in this green liquid, and all is left is his bones. So that's established. And at this point, after that, there's kind of just spooky stuff happening, you know? But then it kind of comes to a head when Mr. Lawrence's wife, Annabelle, is found to be hung off the staircase, and Dr. Trent rules it a suicide, that she did that herself and jumped.
I actually noted that I wrote him down as Freddie. Mr. Lauren, Freddie, I thought he was the one that first said suicide.
Oh.
Am I wrong? Because I very well could be, but I could have sworn it was him, and then I was like, that's suspicious. Why is he the first one calling it?
No, it was Dr. Trent.
Okay, great.
Which is equally as suspicious. Originally, they kind of did a little fake out that you thought it was Nora.
Yep.
Which I knew it wasn't.
Of course, the predictable moment
yeah.
of, yeah.
But they did a good job of hiding her face.
They did.
So
because she
I will
also was
say,
wearing a different dress than either of the women had
she
been wearing.
She changed for
Again,
bed.
Another part I missed. Great.
Well, they didn't show her changing, but at that point, it's a nightgown.
True, it was,
They were all, like, retiring for bed.
Correct.
So, they also give each of the guests a revolver. They give him a Colt model 1903 pocket hammer for protection, but they're handed out in the best way possible, and I got so excited. So they have these boxes of little coffins, and they were so cute, and I was like, oh, I said this out loud while we were watching
confirm it. Happened.
I was like, oh, I want one. Like, they were adorable. And then they open up and it was a gun, and I was like, oh, never mind.
Seriously, was like, oh, cute. Oh, hard stop.
I don't want a gun. I do want a taser, but not a gun.
And also wants a mini coffin, so...
No, if I got a mini coffin with a taser in it, that's goals.
Yes. You heard it here first. If you are looking for a gift for Ashley, there you go.
So, there's a lot of screaming going on. Basically, Nora is tormented to the point where, like, she's going to be, like, she's on edge. She is, like, very fragile in the moment. So she gets scared and goes to the basement. And at this point, Dr. Trent goes to Frederick, Mr. Lance's room. Is it Lance?
Lauren.
No, Lauren, yes. Lance is someone else.
Freddie.
He goes to Freddie's room and says, you check the basement and I will check upstairs. And he's like, how can I trust you? And they're like, guns. So Freddie takes off. Dr. Trent goes around the corner to, search, but then he double backs and goes into whose room?
Annabelle.
What's it? Annabelle, yeah, the wife's room. She's alive. She faked her death.
Wow, shocker.
Yeah.
Actually, It wasn't shocking to me, honestly, until he walked back into the room.
Yeah.
But then it was like, oh, okay, cool.
Yeah, I wasn't surprised. Yeah. So at this point, they're thinking what will happen is that since Nora is so scared, she will turn around. She's in the basement. Freddy boy is gonna be going down to the basement. She's gonna shoot him because Nora thinks that he's trying to kill her. So guess what? It happens. Annabelle and Trent, they're in love. They make out. They think they got away with it. That's right. They planned the perfect murder. So then Nora shoots him. She runs away because she's terrified. Freddy's laying against the wall, clutching his chest. Or he flops forward. Dr. Trent goes down, picks up the body to toss it in the vat of acid. But lo and behold, we don't know what happened. Goes dark. Then our dear friend Annabelle goes down to check the vat of acid to see his bones. And as she's standing over the vat of acid, she looks down, and what happens? A skeleton rises out of the acid and taunts her. So, oh, you thought you got me. You're gonna die. Blah, blah, blah. Whatever it said. It was a little bit more eloquent than that. And she, in an attempt to escape this skeleton, she trips into the vat of acid. And then everyone else that was at this party that was really unimportant just comes down the stairs to see a fake wall open up, and Freddy is alive. Nora's gun had blanks in it. I wouldn't be surprised if they all had blanks in them. And he wasn't shot, and both of them are killed, and that's pretty much it. But Mr. Watson is not convinced, and he says the ghosts are coming for him, and they're coming for you. Deadpan into the camera, and that's it. So a couple fun facts. There are actually a decent amount, but I don't want to spend too much time on them because it's a lot of me speaking. But this film did really well in the theater, and who noticed it but Alfred Hitchcock, which then led him to create his own low-budget horror film, Psycho.
What? Okay.
Yup. So the skeleton that rises from the vat of acid is actually a real human skeleton. It was cheaper and faster to buy a real human skeleton from a bio supply house than to have one created by the special effects department.
We might need a fact check on that. It looked pretty fake to me.
It looked
the head looked
super
really small.
fake.
Literally, when it popped out, I wrote tiny skeleton, and then the rest of it popped out, and I was like, oh, well, it's not that small, but it looked fake.
But it did look fake, so I'm gonna fact check that.
You don't actually have to. I was just saying that feels so weird. But I feel validated that you agree that it looked fake.
No, I thought it was fake.
Okay. Maybe it's because the way they had to connect the ribs.
No, it was fake.
Okay.
I think the initial skeleton that maybe rose up. The skeleton is credited as himself.
Like a human name? Please tell me not a human name. That's creepy.
Oh, this is according to Reddit.
Oh.
Oh, wait. No, it says skeleton by himself.
Oh, okay. Skeleton.
It's in the
That is
the credits.
Very funny. Okay. Why does it look more real in that picture than it did in an actual shot in the movie? That is so weird.
Hold on, now we gotta read the Reddit comments.
I know, now we're in too deep.
Classic method actor.
Oh my
died God. And decomposed for the part. What a damn straight brilliant actor. Truly set the standard for today's age.
Oh my God. His performance had me shaking in my bones.
I hope his career took off.
Oh my God.
So,
I mean, he is well known. Skeleton.
I can't confirm if it's a real skeleton or not. It looked fake.
I agree.
But the initial skeleton that rose up out of the vat and the one that was walking around looked different.
It did.
So that's why I'm thinking it's the one that hit the acid. Because they probably had to do that because the acid probably would have corroded any plastic.
True.
So we solved our own problem. Oh, Elvira, Mistress of Dark, once said that this was her favorite horror film. Do you know who Elvira is?
No.
Oh.
It sounds familiar, but no.
She's iconic.
Okay.
She used to host, like, a horror movie marathons on, like, a TV station that I forget, but she would, like, host it, and she, like, was dressed as a very sexy vampire, basically.
Okay,
And if you
like
see
her.
a picture of her, you'd be like, oh, I know who she is.
Oh, you know what? I think I can picture her now that you say that. Yeah, Queen. Okay. Honestly, not that I watch a lot of horror movies, but, like, it was pretty good. Like,
yeah. No, this one was actually...
Especially considering it's from 1959, like...
Yeah. All right, I'm going to wrap it up for the facts. A lot of the rest of the facts were pretty, like, bulky, and I think we hit the ones we care about.
Yes.
All right, then let's get started with the good.
The good. Dun dun dun.
The first good thing on my list is that it was a decently good movie. I thoroughly enjoyed it.
I definitely agree. I think obviously parts of it were predictable, but something that I was thinking, maybe it's predictable because that was one of the first, horror movies that people started to copy, and that's why it is so well known and a predictable vibe because we've seen it.
Yeah.
So everyone's copying it.
Yeah, I have to agree. Like, overall, it was pretty straightforward of a plot. Like, it wasn't... It was like Clue, but more horror-based.
Yes.
And it definitely... I mean, yeah, I don't know. It set a precedent at the time. Clearly. I mean, it set it brought us Psycho. Like, it, but it still, I think, holds up. Like, there was a lot of it that was just, like, kind of cheap because... But...
Not cringy, though.
No, that's just it. They weren't cringy. There were a few moments where we were, like, chuckling and was like, wow, that effect was so great. But it's from 1959. You have to forgive those moments and still acknowledge the fact that, wow, the jump scare of someone just appearing right behind her still landed really well.
Oh, yeah.
So... to me, like, it didn't, the effects did not cheapen the movie, which I loved, to be honest, because lots of times, like, bad effects does that. But when you acknowledge the fact that it actually does fit within the movie because that's what it was like, I mean, that's what they had, they did the best they could, you can forgive a lot.
Oh, big time. And I think I don't want to say I went in with low expectations because I've heard the name of this movie while I haven't seen it, but... obviously thinking, like, the effects are not going to be that good. So then when they were, not too bad, I was like, okay, great. Like, this is good.
I also think they didn't try to do too many effects for that reason. But no, I was pleasantly surprised by this movie. I was worried we were just going to watch something that was kind of boring. But this movie probably is one of the better horror films of that age. And I think it holds up. I don't know. As someone who has established themselves as a horror person, I don't know too much. Carter's the expert, but he probably hasn't seen this movie either.
Oh,
he's not a big old horror fan.
Okay. He likes horror.
He likes horror.
Yeah.
I also like horror, but this was like had the right vibe, the best vibes. Like, it was perfectly spooky. And that's what I want. I mean, the one thing I wrote on here, I thought it had just enough horror elements to call it a horror movie.
Yeah.
That, like, there wasn't a whole lot of death, but, like, there were some good jump scares. There was, like, horror characteristics in the characters that, like, they're not, like, as blatant as we see now, but, like, we have the pretty girl. We have, the one who's more, sex positive. We have, the kind of forgettable one. We have the drunk. We have the kind of manly man. So I thought that was pretty good. I also thought there were some really great moments that just happened in the movie. I loved the sequence where Annabelle appears to Nora as a ghost outside of her window. I'm still questioning the probability of that because the rope wraps around her ankles, and that, to me, I was like, what? I'm kind of thinking the movie exaggerated it, as in she was exaggerating it in her mind. Like, they wrap around her ankles and then nothing happens. So to me, it's like she probably just overthought it. But one thing I really loved about that moment, and also throughout the film, was the lighting. I thought the lighting was actually very good. I know this movie, I think, originally came out in black and white, because it said in parentheses, now in color.
Oh my gosh, that's funny. I didn't notice that, but I did notice when we were looking it up, every picture was black and white. Yeah.
Yeah. So I thought it was really well lit when, during that scene that I just mentioned, there was, the lights went out and there's lightning going off, and it did a beautiful job of lighting her up as it kind of crashed. But then also they would light a candle and the light would kind of explode. I mean, it didn't look exactly like the light was completely coming from the candle, but like, I thought it had good intentions, and the technology was there for the time. Like, you know, again, we can't hold it in a comparison to modern movies.
No, exactly. And I didn't even notice the lighting like being, you know, maybe a little too bright to be candles until very close to the end. I actually said, I was like, wait, I forgot they said there's no electricity in this house, and that's all candles. But like, seriously, it didn't make a difference to me at all, because like, that's something I'm going to forget to pay attention to, because I don't really care.
Right.
I'm also not really a horror movie person. I don't really watch movies at all. I have very short attention span, so I'm not really going to critique, you know, sort of aspects of the movie in general. I'm not going to notice them.
That's okay, though, but as someone who also has a short attention span, I get it. Also, we're also at Carter's house. Did I mention that he's not here?
No.
That's great.
By the way, Carter's not in this episode, if you haven't noticed by
Carter's
now.
not here because he abandoned me to go to Portugal. He'll be back by the time this comes out, but that's not important. The point is the fact that he abandoned me again. This is a common thread with him. I'm kidding. I'm kidding. He can go on vacation and have a good time. But that's why he's not here. We are at his house, though, and we originally were supposed to come and record tomorrow, but it's supposed to snow, so we came tonight, and there's no heat on in the house, and I don't want to turn on the heat, because, like, I don't want to waste their electricity too much, but also, I'm cold.
We are bundled. We have some blankets on.
We made tea. Wait, while we were watching the movie, they have like an electric fireplace, so I put that on. It was just like I literally flocked to it the way Carter's cat flocks to it, because she just sits there in front of the fire. I have like a heating pad, and I should have brought that, because that would have been prime. But anyways, back to this movie. What did you like about it? I've been talking too much.
I have to say, I'm afraid this is going to like ruin all of my credibility for anything I say moving forward. At some angles, Mr. Lauren, Freddie was like kind of attractive. Like the very traditional, like 50s, like he had a little bit of a tan, brown hair, blue eyes, but the mustache was like too much, obviously. He kind of gave, you know, like Sportacus vibes from Lazy Town, but yeah, so
that is Sportacus,
I was
but
afraid
make
to
it
say it.
1950s.
Yeah.
It's exactly what he looks like. I think that's a compliment. And I wouldn't disagree with you that he was a fine-looking gentleman.
Thank you. Ooh, I was nervous.
I don't know if I'd be signing up to be wife number 5 after the fact that the last 4 have been accidentally unalived.
Yeah.
But I would have probably been wife number 1.
I also feel like that's probably part of the lore that I'm like, he's the bad boy, okay?
He's dangerous.
Oh, I might get murdered, okay? I'm just kidding. I'm kidding. I would never want that.
Boys,
anyways.
listen up. Fiona's type.
Anyways, so another thing that I thought was very good was there was a lot of good foreshadowing moments in this movie. Like when Ashley was mentioning in the plot how they went into the cellar like at the beginning of the movie and showed like the vat. The camera pointed to Mr. Lauren. His eyes were lit up. Like he was ready to use that vat. He kept saying that this party was my wife's idea. He kept saying that at the beginning, this was your idea. This was my wife's party. This was her idea. And I was like, that feels kind of weird because I think you're about to murder everyone. But then maybe, it turned out it was his wife's idea, actually, which was pretty interesting.
Yes, you're right. Because I assumed that the purpose of the party was for him to kill her.
Of course.
But the fact that she set it up so that she could kill him, I thought that was a pretty good twist.
Oh, yeah.
They did a good job of keeping that a secret.
Mm-hmm.
I will say I was surprised that there was another love interest for her.
Yeah.
I wasn't in the sense because they kept talking about how jealous he is, but I was in the sense that like they didn't really do it. Like there was no side glance from either of them just to like give a little like hint of something. So I was a little about that, but then at the same time, I feel like I should have saw it because he was the one who declared the body dead. So I don't know.
Mm-hmm. He also actually kept kind of giving updates about what was going on. Like anytime someone disappeared, like he was the one checking in, filling everyone in. He was the one orchestrating, trying to like, get people against Mr. Lauren.
That is a good point.
Yeah.
I missed.
No, those gears
his
did not turn
influence.
until the movie ended. And same with like he was a psychiatrist focused on hysteria, and the whole time he was the one pushing the narrative of Nora's just hysterical. She's not seeing ghosts, which was actually made pretty credible because the first supposed ghost she saw was not a ghost.
It was the housekeeper.
and then the second supposed ghost was also the male housekeeper. The first one was the female. So, it all really played out pretty well.
It did. Yeah, that is very true. I mean, I think they did a really good job of planning their attack against our boy Freddy, but they weren't successful. I really felt bad for Nora.
I did too. It just really wasn't fair because, like, we have Ruth out here. Like, what is she doing? She's literally just there to be an extra person, and poor Nora's getting terrorized.
Yeah, I know. I think at one point Ruth was a little terrorized because the blood dripped on her hand, and then it did it again later. That was decently like, ooh, what's happening?
Yeah.
But then nothing happened.
Correct. It was literally just
like,
blood dripping down.
It was like, oh, is that actually the real ghost? And I was like, okay. What I think would have been interesting is actually if they fast forwarded to like them potentially trying to kill each other, but then the real ghosts come out.
Honestly, yeah.
That would have been a great 20-minute ending.
Yeah. And the movie itself, too, the way it was split up, like, most of it was before that, like, midnight cutoff of, like, where you have to go. Like, at one point, Ashley was like, how long is this movie? Because it was, like, kind of, like, weird, Why is it all this build-up?
It was taking a little long.
Yeah.
That being said, I thought it had decent intensity and build-up for a movie that lacked a lot of gore and like jump scares and things like that. I think that was a lot of it had to do with the music that was playing. Something that I've noticed that modern movies have kind of strayed away from is like the constant music. This movie, for the most part, unless there was like a very quiet moment where they were talking, there was constant music going on. And in a lot of moments, it created a lot of tension. Some moments not so much, but we'll get into that later. But yeah, I thought the music was pretty good.
Yeah, and I think because they had it playing almost constantly, it didn't necessarily give much away. I think in a modern horror movie, when the music starts getting more intense or music just starts, you're like, oh, something's about to happen.
Yeah.
Where, I mean, this movie, you can just predict it because it was from 1959, but
Right.
They also did a lot of, like, flashing to the time as well.
Yeah.
So that, like, built the suspense at the beginning of, like, oh, these people have until midnight to choose. We're going to show the clock at, like, 11:30 after the first possible ghost sighting, and then again they showed it at like 11:53, I think.
Oh, I missed those moments. I was writing notes during that.
11:53 was like right before the door spontaneously locked before midnight. Right when Nora, the prime woman, wanted to leave.
Yep.
Well, not the prime woman, but the prime like key target of their plot.
Yeah, it was kind of weird because, like, the housekeepers disappear, and that's never wrapped up. But they also themselves were pretty creepy.
They were.
So the female housekeeper, I assume they're like a couple. There was like husband and wife. So they said that the reason is she's so freaky looking, not because she's a doll, but because she is blind. And I've got bad news for everyone concerned. She's not real. She like has her hands like posed in like raptor hands.
Like, the only way that I feel like that could have been normal is if she were screeching, to be completely honest with you.
Yeah.
It was very tense.
She like
moment.
her face looked like she was yelling. Like it looks like a prop from another movie.
Yeah.
Like
Frozen.
Yeah, she looks frozen, exactly. And like the first time we see her, she just kind of, I'm gonna say glides. She glides into the room for a little bit and then just glides out. Like, she doesn't walk. If she was a real person, she would have walked, which would have meant then she would have thought, oh, she's not a ghost. And then she somehow appears right behind her and then again glides out. But she's on a dolly. So she is wheeled out and you can kind of see like it lift a little bit at an angle.
I didn't even notice.
I'm pretty sure it was like not completely flat that she's being wheeled out, that she was at a little bit of an angle. This creature was not it was a doll. It was a prop for sure. Watch, there's someone that trained in acting like for so long that like that was like their big time role. They were so proud of it. And I'm tearing them to shreds right now.
Honestly, if you thought they were a prop, maybe that means they did a good enough job.
Fair,
I don't know.
that's a good
that
point.
Could be an argument.
That is true. Always seeing the light in the tunnel.
Always.
I did like the plot. Did I already talk about that?
I think so. I don't know. I also very much enjoyed the plot.
Yeah. I thought it was pretty logical. There were times where it kind of just ran around in circles where we were just talking to Nora a lot, but I liked it. I don't have anything to complain in terms of the plot beyond like the time constraint. But yeah.
Yeah.
What else did you like about this movie?
Oh, I really liked that it opened and closed both with Watson, the homeowner, being extremely paranoid. Like, he started off the movie with, like, you know, kind of telling us what's the background about this house? Why is it creepy? What's happened? What is going to happen in the movie? Like, why are they all gathered there? And then at the end, when he's closing out, like, he is just the epitome of paranoia.
Yeah.
And I mean, hey, if my house had 7 murders plus, you know, however many...
2.
Yeah, 9 now. Like, I would probably be a little paranoid too. But I'm just intrigued that he decided to go and be a part of this. I don't know if I would be nosy enough to risk my death.
Yeah, me either. I feel like I wouldn't need money. I wouldn't need an extra $10,000 if I'm renting it out for $50,000.
True.
Like, so... oh, wait. No, it was just a $50,000 night because that's how much they would split.
But they did say he rented the house, so we have to assume maybe some money was going to him.
He paid for it. Yeah. So, on top of that, though, I liked how the opening was just his severed head.
Yeah.
Like, it was just a floating head talking to us, giving us this backstory. And then Freddy's head also fades in over the house. No, and by over, I mean, like, on top of a still of the house. It was just some great movie making.
Can I give another... This isn't a hot take, but I was just like laughing to myself. When they gave the first overview of the house, it reminded me of the episode of SpongeBob when Mrs. Puff is in jail. It looked like the jail from SpongeBob, but like bigger, like 3 of them attached to each other.
That's so funny. I haven't seen that episode in so long.
It was like the first thing that popped into my head, and I was actually laughing very hard.
That's a riot. Yeah. What else? Oh, I want to go back to the skeleton that we briefly brought up. I gotta say, that was pretty enjoyable.
That scene was actually gonna make me pee myself, I feel like, if it went on any longer.
So, like, there's this big old rig that Freddy is using to get this skeleton to walk, and it's just so funny because, like, it clearly looks fake, but it is doing its best. I mean, clearly, you know, the skeleton is trying his hardest to scare her, and it works in his case, but I was just like cracking myself up over how silly this skeleton looks.
Yeah, she might have been terrified, but I really don't think anyone else was at all. It was pretty stiff with maybe some arthritis vibes.
Oh, man. Let's move on to the bad. Mm-hmm. Okay, so I think I've already talked about this. The movie dragged on a little bit in the middle. Mm-hmm. That's my biggest issue. What about you?
Honestly, it kind of bothered me at the beginning when Watson was, like, walking everyone through the house. Like, he started kind of showing them, like, this is where someone was murdered, and that's where, like, the first blood started to drop from the ceiling, and then he took them into the cellar. This is where, like, the third person, because I missed the first one, then the second person was, like, electrocuted in the cellar, or no, something happened in the cellar, and then he was electrocuted later. And the third person was the person who was pushed into the acid. But they didn't tell us about the other 4 people and how they were murdered, and that bothered me.
Well, we know 2 of them were stabbed by his sister-in-law.
So that gives us 5.
And I think another person stabbed the other 2.
Okay. So maybe they did technically tell us, but
I
don't know.
I don't remember all of them exactly. I just remember him picking up the knife. But yeah,
that was one of my bads. I understand he's the owner of the house, but he has never ever stayed. He stayed there overnight one singular time. Why does he have a knife in the arm of his chair?
I don't know. He's a little odd. The place is a little odd. I think he's crazy paranoid. And I agree that it belongs in the bad.
Yeah, I was like, what is happening? Okay. He's randomly, like, whipped out a knife. I was like, okay, cool, dude.
Yeah. Another thing that I disliked, while I did overall like the music, at times I did felt it was a little disruptive. Like, it took me out at certain moments. Alternately, also, the audio in some places was not great. Like, there was, like, these long stretches of screeches that, like, didn't make any sense. And it was, like, it's kind of hard to say if it's, like, just, the audio quality of the time or, like, it was intentional. Like, I think having, like, a dramatic, like, was intentional, but it was, like, you know what I mean?
I quite literally asked, was that the movie beeping? Or, like, I was wondering if an alarm was going off or something.
Yeah,
randomly.
I did a really bad job of describing those sounds, but...
Well, I mean, I knew what you were referring to.
You get the effect that I'm giving. It's just, like, we were expecting, like, let's kind of, like, maybe almost like a violin screech, but, like, less dramatic and less prolonged versus, like, just something that just, like, was like, what is going on?
Yeah.
What else did you not like?
Another one of my bads was they, like, switched the plot, which was, like, to something less predictable, which was, like, the Annabelle appearing in the window, which whatever.
Yeah.
We already talked about that. But after that, when Nora runs out screaming, blah, 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 she sees Annabelle hanging there again. She's standing by, like, this half-closed door screaming. A literal werewolf hand pops up behind her. And I was like, okay, that was not necessary at all because no one has ever mentioned anything about werewolves. We've been talking about ghosts this whole time. What is happening? And never again was the werewolf hand involved.
So that was definitely Dr. Trent, and it was just like an extra layer to make sure. I think to disguise his hand, make it seem more like Frederick's. And B, just to, like, really throw her off and freak her out.
Okay, now that I think about it, that makes sense because she also had thought that Freddie, Mr. Lauren, was strangling her, but it was obviously Dr. Trent.
Yeah. But I also sat there and was like, what the heck is this werewolf hand? It really, really took me out. Yeah. It was a decent moment of her, like, seeing the body hanging again. And, like, then just, like, ruining it with this werewolf hand. Like, I was just like, wait, what?
No, that had the opportunity to really be the best part in the movie, and then the werewolf hand popped out.
Yeah.
All she needed to do was run away before that popped out, and we would have been golden.
Yeah. That was wild. So, one issue I have, my next bad, is that the acting from the ladies was, at time, not the greatest. Specifically, Nora. And I think it's mainly just because we got so much screen time of her, but in certain moments she'd be like so distraught and so upset and like leaning on, not physically, but just like leaning on Lance for emotional support. And he's like, yeah, he like would express any sort of like, I'll take care of you, like I'll fix this for you, kind of whatever. And she would smirk. And I was like, smirking is mischievous. Like, I was a little thrown off by that because I was like, are you the bad guy? Like, I don't think you are.
I didn't notice that.
Yeah. Yeah, she'd kind of just, like, smirk a little, and I'd be like... Yeah, she does it twice in the movie, both after having, like, a dramatic fit of, like, distress. And I'm like, is this supposed to be a red herring? Maybe it is, and maybe it was just bad direction from the director, but I just didn't like it at all.
Yeah, if I had noticed that, I definitely wouldn't have liked it either, because there definitely were times that she could have been a little, like, smirking and smitten, and that's definitely not one of them.
No.
That actually kind of leads me into a bad that I didn't write down. I just feel like if we were going to focus on Lance and Nora, let's focus on Lance and Nora. Let's give them a little love arc. Like, they didn't really have much, you know?
I know. They needed a kiss at the end.
Just one little smooch.
Just a little, yeah. I'm rooting for them. I have to agree.
Maybe we can just pretend the sequel would be them together.
Yeah.
We'll pretend that.
They have a reunion for this weird night that they all accidentally participated in a murder.
We love a trauma bond reunion.
Yeah. What else did you not like?
The only other thing that I wrote down was, like, the rope effects that you had mentioned. Yeah. Like, it was just kind of weird. Like, it, obviously, like, again, like we said, the effect obviously isn't going to be that good. They were, like, piecing together little, like, clips of, like, the rope moving closer to Nora from, like, outside of the window that was attached to Annabelle from when she was hung, and it started, like, wrapping around her legs. So I'm thinking, oh my gosh, it's going to wrap around her legs and try and, like, pull her out the window.
Yeah.
But she wouldn't have been able to make it out the window because they were, like, metal bars.
That's what I couldn't understand why the rope was wrapping around. Like, the rope kind of being there, like, I get it, it makes sense for, like, oh, the ghost is haunting me with the rope. But if that's the case, it would have crawled up her body to her neck.
Right.
You know, so it's just like, I know it wasn't a real ghost, and that's definitely a component, but it just didn't make a whole lot of sense. Her just being in the window would have been enough.
I agree, because I think that it definitely gave it away where it was going, because once Nora was spared, you knew kind of that's where you were like, maybe Annabelle's not dead, actually.
Yeah, no. That's all of my bads.
Same.
Awesome. All right, let's move on to the spooky.
The spooky.
You want to go first?
Well, I actually, like, didn't have many spookies because, you know, while the plot of the movie was great, like Ashley's mentioned, it hasn't had a lot of jump scares, hasn't had a lot of gore. We didn't mention the bad technically being the dead parts that they showed, like the heads were obviously bad because, like,
I mean,
that's part of the effects, but
I don't think the effects are really worth mentioning as a bad thing because
that's true. Not fair.
Them.
Not fair.
Yeah, it's hard to really harp on this movie for doing that.
Yeah,
but yeah, I understand there wasn't a whole lot of spook. There was one jump scare that actually really got me, and I've already mentioned it, but it was when they were in the wine cellar and the caretaker was, like, right behind Nora, and it just kind of panned to her being there, and I just wasn't expecting it.
That one kind of got me, and then there was the one when she ran back upstairs and encountered the male caretaker, because he kind of came out of nowhere, but you'd already kind of gotten a little bit of your first little jump scare. And then the other things that I wrote down that were spooky was when Annabelle was, like, appearing out the window, because I wasn't really expecting that to happen. That was not part of the plot that I was predicting in my head. The movie that I would have written wouldn't have been as entertaining.
Yeah, I mean, I really liked that moment.
Yeah.
Awesome. All right, what would you give this movie for a rating? Oh, wait, do you have a quote for the, what was his name? Roger Bones
Wait,
Memorial
which one was
Highline.
Sorry, you just confused me by saying that because I forgot it was called that.
So, well, it was the Joe DeStasio Memorial Line highlight, but now it is like the Roger R. Bones or B. Bones Memorial Line highlight.
So how do I do it? Do I say it and say who said it?
Yeah,
Okay,
you
great.
can just say the line.
Iconic. You didn't know when you planned your game of murder that I was playing too.
Fred says that to Annabelle.
But actually, now that I am saying it back, when was that? Did he say it to her literal dead body in the acid?
I think so.
Okay.
I think he was like standing over the body as it was like bubbling.
Iconic.
And he was like, ha ha, gotcha. All right. Do you want to give your rating first?
Well, I feel like you and Carter always do a different rating scale, so
We
I think
do.
I want you to go first to see if mine will be different.
Okay, I gave it a 7. 7 strangers, 4 boys, 3 girls in a house for murder.
Now I can't decide between the two that I was thinking of.
Oh, no.
Okay.
Do both.
Okay,
Who cares?
now that you said that, it made me think I give it 7 mini coffins with fake guns.
Ooh.
But my original one was, if we're rating on a scale of 5, I give it 4.5 50s style mustaches.
Ooh, both of those are good. I love it. Awesome. Well, thank you, Fiona, for being here. I'm low-key drowning in sleep. So I've been fading for the last, 20 minutes, to the point where I'm actually almost invisible. So
She may be more ghostly than the ghosts in this movie.
yeah, it's actually just this blanket that I'm wrapped in is floating in midair, and there's a faint outline of me, but my voice, I mean, clearly you can still hear it. But 2 more yawns and I'm completely gone. And I haunt Carter's house forever.
Oh my gosh.
And just kind of an apparition appears whenever it's time to record the podcast. You know, being a ghost would be great. Goals.
I mean, honestly, I have to say, when someone asked me what superpower I'd want, as much as it would probably give me immense anxiety, I would want to be able to read people's minds. So it's kind of a similar vibe.
Ooh, I mean, yeah, because if you're a ghost or a fly on the wall, you get to know exactly what people are thinking all the time. And if you can pop into their bodies, you can read their mind because you know you. I just want to be Danny Phantom, okay?
Don't we all?
All right, Danny Phantom, play us out. Kidding, I'm not gonna.
Danny Phantom. Danny Phantom.
I have a friend who knows all the words, and I am embarrassed just to say that sentence.
No, I actually love that. Had a crush on Danny Phantom as a child. Not
Who
afraid to admit
didn't?
that.
Who didn't? And then I wanted to be the goth girl in the show. Because, also, who didn't?
Yeah, of course. Oh my gosh.
All right. And with that, I think we're done now. So, next week, Carter won't be back because we're actually going to do a couple episodes with guests. And by we, I mean me. I'm going to do a couple episodes with guests because we're trying to make our lives easier by recording a little ahead of time. Only, of course, when Carter is gone and I get the responsibility of watching multiple movies because he can't watch more than one movie in 1 week. I'm cutting this out. All right. Before we wrap up, Fiona's got a dog walking business that for all the local people can hear about it and where you can find her. So take it away.
You can find me on Instagram and Facebook at Fee's Furry Friends Dog Sitting. I'm in Andover, so if you ever need a dog sitter, hit me up. I like to do overnights, like to do dog walking. And you know what? If I'm not available, you know who I call usually? Ashley.
That's true.
You know, one or the other. Great options for you.
Yes. It's always the best when Fiona's like, hey, are you around to dog sit? And I'm like, you know what? I am.
Yes. With that, thank you for listening to Horror Sucks. Make sure to follow us, listen to us wherever you find podcasts, share us on your socials, and follow us on Instagram at Horror Sucks. Is it Horror Sucks or Horror Sucks Podcast?
Horror Sucks Podcast.
Horror Sucks Podcast. Bad fan.
All right. And with that, Stay spooky. Horror Sex is brought to you by Wild Thing Media. Production and editing done by me. Thanks. Bye.